seen a growth in the public art around the city of Johannesburg, more specifically in the inner city. And that came by through the intervention from the city of Johannesburg by introducing a policy called the public art policy. The main thing in the policy that actually made it possible to get this kind of public art around here is the 1% that you're getting from all the big projects that happens within the city. Each and every artwork that you see around has its own history. Firewalker is actually in the intersection, in a triangle in the intersection. And if you come from a distance, you can actually see that it actually represents a woman with a brazier on her head. But as you come nearer, then you can see these fragmented steel panels. They actually give you different interpretation. As a result, people are interpreting it differently. But the main feature of it is the brazier on the head. It symbolizes the fact that women within the city are actually entrepreneurs who actually have to feed for their families. And some of them, the only way to do that is actually to sell the roasted mealies and the roasted peanuts. But that particular one, the Firewalker, where it's actually located, is not far from the taxi rank. And most of the pedestrians that walk past it are going through to the taxi rank. So it does have that sort of association with the people going to the taxi rank. This is called Democracy in Dialogue. It was actually commissioned to celebrate 20 years of democracy in 2014. If you can see, this is a woman. The woman has got a baby on her back and is carrying a light. And as you can see, that's a form of protest, even the way she's standing. This place, the Beyers Square, is actually well known for as an assembling point for protesting workers, for all the protests that mostly happen within the city. So this was specifically put there to represent the women, and also to say that women are not always passive. As much as they still have to do their chores, as looking after the babies, they still involved in the struggle for their emancipation. Pen of knowledge, you get it as you going into Braamfontein coming from the inner city. It actually symbolizes the fact that Braamfontein is, around Johannesburg, there's no place that got as many educational institutions as Braamfontein. There's private, there's universities, there's private colleges, they're all there. So the pen of knowledge actually acknowledges the fact that Braamfontein is full of educational institutions. And the people who come there are not necessarily coming from Braamfontein, they're coming from all around the country. And also, if you look at the pen of knowledge, it has some pillars around. It's called radials, not pillars. And it's 9 radials coming from the concrete base. And those 9 radials are actually symbolizes the 9 provinces that everybody that you see comes from. The Walter and Albertina Sisulu statue was done as a tribute to them as a couple. As you can see, there's 2 couples facing each other. And it was meant to celebrate their political life and love story. As you know, they are one of the longest married people. But also the mere fact that they are sitting, facing each other and looking at each other, it shows the way they always complimented each other in life, even when Walter was in prison. But also it also gives us an indication of how much they saw each other as equals. That's why they're sitting and facing each other. Shadowboxing, it's constructed from a photograph that was taken by one of the drum photographers, Bob Khosane, of Mandela sparring not in a gym, on one of the Johannesburg rooftops with Jerry Molloy, one of the boxers at that time. And it's placed there specifically in front of Chancellor House, because if you remember, Chancellor House, it's where Oliver Tambo and Mandela had their law practicing offices. And it's also just next to the Johannesburg Magistrate Courts. And it also it symbolizes the fact that Mandela always fought for human rights for other people in South Africa. The paper pigeon, if you look at them, it actually resembles a pigeon. It's placed in the place called Pigeon Square, because that's where we always had pigeons in front of the family court. And the paper pigeon is done in a paper folding technique that is called origami in Oriental and Chinese culture. And it's also placed there because there's lots of Chinese community and businesses around the area. Brenda Fassi behind us was done by Angus Taylor. It was actually donated to the city by the Sunday Times. It was done in 2006. It's a very interactive sculpture, because you see there's a seat next to Brenda, which gives people a chance to actually interact with her, like sit on the chair next to her and sort of hold the mic. I actually like to ask people to come. There's lots of public art within the city of Johannesburg that has been done in the last couple of years, and it's a very good. There's even public art tours now that are being done by tourists because of the historical value of the public art and the way people interact with it. We might not be able to interpret it the same way, but all the same, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder.